Hey everyone, before we get started, take a second to like and subscribe to the show.
It's the best way to help us share great information with more people. Thank you.
A diagnosis can change a lot, but it should never take away dignity, joy, or a sense of purpose. In this episode, we're exploring how caregivers can move from uncertainty and overwhelm to confidence and calm with simple, practical tools that truly meet them where they are. Learn how thoughtful home environments and adaptive engagement activities can reduce confusion, spark meaningful connection, and empower loved ones to stay involved in daily life, no matter their ability. This conversation is all about easing the invisible weight that caregivers carry and replacing "what do I do" with "I've got this."
And we're so excited to be able to have this conversation with Ju Tu, who is the founder of Ageless, a Seattle-based company focused on building a world for cognitive accessibility through thoughtfully designed visual support systems and adaptive engagement. Good adaptable. Ageless helps caregivers create environments that promote independence, dignity, and meaningful moments for people living with dementia and other cognitive. She works closely with family caregivers and senior living communities and healthcare partners to translate their caregiving challenges into really simple, practical, ready-to-use solutions that make everyday care more intuitive and less. And before she created Ageless, Ju worked in management consulting and corporate program management roles for a decade. She's also a care partner to her grandparents and brings extensive experience in optimist. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so glad to have you.
Both of you are so wonderful. I've watched your episodes all across social media platform. Love both of your energy, your passion, bring it to the caregiver education space. Very, very validating and exciting for me to be here. Thank you for
Thank
having
you so
me.
much. Yeah, thank you so much for being on CareLab. We really appreciate you being here today. Let's just dive right in. I'm so intrigued by this bio. How did you get from the corporate world to where you are now?
Great question. So, one of the first lesson I've learned at the beginning of my UT Austin MBA orientation was to find your ikigai, which is the intersection of what the world needs, what your strengths are, and what your passion is. So for me, I've always felt like something was missing when I was in the corporate world. And it wasn't until the visit to my grandparents in 2024 that I realized that his cognition decline has reached a level that was beyond normal aging. It was Alzheimer's disease. And it was just really painful for me to see how a previously aspirational people leader, a man full of wisdom, suddenly turned into a shell. And there was a lot of social stigma around him. My grandmother became the primary caregiver, handling big financial medical decisions as well as a lot of these repetitive questions in the quiet moments at home. There wasn't a lot of activities they can do. So I was like, there must be a way I can do something for them. So I searched extensively for dementia friendly activities in China, and then later back in the US, I searched on Amazon, and the search results were just really depressing. So that was my trigger one, is that people have really normalized the low expectation for senior friendly product. And the second, I think based on that personal experiences, I did a lot of personal interviews with family caregivers, also operators in adult family homes, nursing home, and just asked them like, what kind of puzzles or tabletop activities do you engage with your loved one? Family caregiver did, like, a lot of them didn't even realize the importance of cognitive engagement. And for like nursing homes, a lot of answers I got were like, oh, children's puzzle because they're big and sturdy. But for me, just that never sit right with me. That how can we use infantizing or childish products just because of convenience? So that was like the trigger two. And the last trigger was I kind of did this social pressure test with my friend circle, which is 10 seconds. Please let me know one high quality, senior friendly activity product brand, any activity product brand. And then none of them can, answer that question intuitively within 10 seconds. If you think asking the same question for parents, it's going to be an easy answer, like toys and games. endless choices and big brand names serving the kids. The seniors are, such a big part of our population. Why shouldn't we create something that factoring their life of wisdom, their knowledge, their like vision and dexterity, cognition, new realities into the product design. So based on all of that, I was like, okay, this is really, I feel like my passion, what the world needs and what I could be good at intersect. So that's what got me started on the ageless entrepreneurship journey.
Thank you for going through that with us and talking about how you thought that. I'm interested in there were a lot of big challenges right? And you saw how you came the caregiver and she had lots of things she had to deal with. And there's, I'm sure, lots of ways your energy could have been used to help them. What made it stand out to you about the activities?
Because so like a lot of family caregivers who started off a diagnostic report from the doctor and that was just it. Okay, you have a lot of read all of this, mostly very depressing to read, and then there's a lot of the bulk of the time relies on the in-home interactions because due to mobility issue my grandfather can walk for some period of time during the day, but a bulk of the time is within the home environment. The interaction with TV, with newspaper, with the home organization, with the garden. But I would say the bulk of the time is sitting in the living room in his chair and watching TV. And it was depressing TV. So for me, it was the trigger that there must be something that very intuitive, simple, for my grandmother to engage him cognitively so he can feel okay, stay focused for a short period of time, maybe 30 minutes, maybe 1 hour, so she can be relieved in doing some of the household chores and go buy things and leave the home without feeling worried. The alternative is, always hire somebody, the in-home care aide. But for me, it just doesn't feel right. And I know that in this dementia caregiving journey, it's really important for people to stay engaged in healthy brain stimulation, whether it's through, doing purposeful household activities or doing any kind of brain and memory exercises that will help preserve the remaining abilities. So I wanted to really pause their reality, whatever, that reality, and then educate my grandmother that please let's find something that allow him to do purposefully and also in a dignified way, in a joyful way where you also enjoy too. So that's what got me started in the engagement activities.
Okay, so I have two questions. First one is really short. Are you sure you're not an occupational therapist? First of all,
she's saying all the things, right?
Because you're saying all the things. You're saying even if you're not, very naturally, you actually are, even though you maybe didn't know it. Here's my real question. Everything that you're saying is so on the nose, just absolutely correct and spot on. What is so challenging about achieving this is as someone continues through their dementia journey or has any level of cognitive decline, even if it's someone with a stroke or a brain injury or something else, there's a phrase we have in occupational therapy called the just right challenge. And the idea is to find the activity that is meaningful and purposeful, but meets that person exactly where they're at in that journey. And that can be a very challenging thing to do. So I'm so interested and excited about how do you find that just right challenge? How do your products support home caregivers figuring out what that just right challenge is? Because that can be really, really tricky.
Oh, that is extremely tricky. I'll be very honest with you that I started the company in July 2024 thinking that it could be, at the beginning, it could just be modifying the conventional product features, which is a lot of existing, if you search dementia friendly products on Amazon, even today, you'll find out a lot of AI generated picture with larger pieces. and they just call it, okay, this could be dementia friendly because it's big. And I don't find that acceptable because I still feel like because of the limited hand dexterity, the vision, there has, I really wanted to understand their new reality and develop something that is extremely simple, extremely intuitive, and encourage self-initiation. So it ease the burden on caregiver as well. And sometimes simplicity is the ultimate complexity. In order to achieve that, and because I didn't have coming from a senior living and medical pedigree, I really have to be well immersed in the dementia caregiving space. So I didn't take the shortcut. I kind of take the long cut, which is become a volunteer at Elderwise, which is dementia friendly adult daycare center in Seattle. So I volunteer there every week and just engage with a group of seniors in a delightful environment and observe their interactions with the environment, with each other, with art, with other activities from a product development lens and also from like a social research lens, and see like if I'm developing something for the general public and then also specifically for this underserved population, I just really have to be well educated myself and then see how I can, reinvent something from the start. That one year experiences gave me very rich first-hand experiences on their interactions in their hand motions and how they can talk to each other. But what I ultimately learned is that the remaining strength, if you prepare the environment well, they will still shine. And second is they're eager to connect it to the world around them is so strong. And third,
it's undiminished. People's desire to connect never goes away.
Never.
Undiminished, yeah.
Yeah. And then if you praise them, if any small things you do for them, they're just so happy. They can also be very creative as well throughout our artwork series. So I was just amazed by how wonderful my experiences at Elderwise was. So that kind of really paved the foundation for me in being a product designer.
There's so many great. Are your grandparents still living in China?
Yes.
And so my question is, because one of the things you mentioned was how they fit, you noticed that they were a little bit shunned and for this diagnosis, and also you mentioned just now about how people have this undiminished desire to connect, and yet there's not a lot of things out there that are intentionally for fun, engagement, connection when we have challenges with our cognition. And so first I just kind of want to know, do you see any similarities or differences in culture, culturally, about how dementia or Alzheimer's perceived in China versus how it's here? Because to me it seems like the diagnosis itself is challenged,
yeah,
but the way we deal with it is also part of our perception, right? That you're an older adult, maybe there's not necessarily room for fun, or we don't need to focus on engagement or activity in the same way that we think about kids need to, in order to develop well, they need to have connection with their parents and friends, and you need to play, and play is part of their development. We're real intentional about it, but we're not necessarily intentional about that as adults. And I feel like that's a thing we could change societally. So I just wonder if you see similarities or differences or a little bit of both culturally that could.
I think it's very similar when it comes to stigma. And when people talk about it, for us who now work in this healthcare dementia caregiving space, we know that is just a lot of conceptions, or the prevalent social norms are not true. But for people who are not in this space, who are not very well versed into the family caregiving side of things, I think strong stigma exists. For me, my grandparents, for my grandfather, people who talk about him are still using the tag and say, yeah, I don't really know what to talk. And okay, it's a social gathering. Should I invite him or not? That kind of already sets up veil lens, and he is already predetermined to be not fit for social interactions, which is probably, I think there's a lot of similarity in here. But I think what really sets US apart is that there are a lot of adult daycare centers, very well built out memory care communities. There are far more brain health apps and more dementia friendly emerging solutions going to the space. So I do see that more and more people are starting to catching this trend and want to invest to capitalize on the future, like this trend. Versus, I think in China, when I search on Taobao, which is the e-commerce platform, I still find, mostly just low quality children's products, repurpose the product title in the listing. And I haven't really seen a lot of brands are trying to reinvest it in the senior focused space yet. But to your point, I think it's predominantly similar.
I have a follow-up question for this, and you may or may not have a good answer. I think it's just an interesting topic of conversation. And I think it really comes down to, there's also a difference. I think part of the reason there's such a difference in the amount of products available is because people have a very different perception about investing and spending money depending on the age spectrum that someone is in. So we all know, if you will spend anything for your child, any amount of money, nothing, you will work, you will pick up a third job, you will do whatever it is to do whatever your child needs for you, right? But we don't necessarily, when it comes to extremely important and even basic quality of life issues for older adults, people are just less willing to invest. And often the older adult is less willing to even invest in themselves, right?
Yeah.
To have this thing that would be so helpful to make their life more enjoyable or more functional or whatever it is. What kind of role do you think, or could you just talk about that a little bit? I also, if this is not where you want to go, you can just be I don't know, this is a hard question, this is dumb, let's not talk about this, we could go to something else.
I think you're absolutely right, because I think about this all the time too. And from a sandwich generation perspective, you're handling yourself, you have a lot of pressure coming at work from the children, and then now your parents, maybe even grandparents. So in thinking about all of these competing forces and where that the span could give me the most joy, I think the easiest answer is the kids, or some indulgence activity on the spousal relationship or the self-care. When it comes to caring for parents, I think there are a few complications to that. First is a lot of people are doing the long distance caregiving. So the social connection, going out into different senior center events, to have that is not a natural activity for a lot of seniors. A lot of people choose to age in place, but also they don't go out. They may lose their spouse at a certain point of their life or lose connections with some of the family members. And when they retire, they just, stay isolated from the bigger social network. So it's really hard for the adult children to convince their long distance parents to, can you go out? Can you try something? So I think a lot of conversation started with daughter wanted to change the behavior of their parents from afar, and that didn't really go well. So
yeah, good luck.
So I think it's from good intention, but just
of course,
how you landed, it doesn't work. And then second, I think just a mainstream social, mainstream marketplace or mainstream consumer behavior is not necessarily on the senior cognitive engagement, games and activities for in-home use. As I was when I even apply for the company registration on the website, on different websites, or even wanted to apply for products competitions, and there's a drop down. on a product category. So that question always gets me. So I'm clearly not baby and children. I'm not toys and games. I don't believe that like what I'm developing should be toy. And it was really hard for me to find a right category that capture this non-pharmaceutical, non-medical cognitive engagement activities and visual support system that support the in-home caregiving. So like I think just broadly this mainstream, I don't know how to call it, mainstream consumer marketplace hasn't really captured this very large needy thing. Sorry for lack of a better word.
There's not even the right category for it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, category. That was the word I was looking for. So that's how I feel like now it's a category I'm like creating for the seniors.
That is such an important, because if the going saying is, you can't talk about it, it can't change. Like you can't put a word to it, you can't do anything, track it, then you can't like make progress or change. The very first thing we need is a category, a word, way to talk. And you see that happen in all kinds of movements over history, right? Like as soon as you get like a name, then you can easily say it to each other and you can say, oh, that's right, we don't have enough of that, whatever that is, right? And you need to make change on it. And so even going all the way back to just like finding the right category is so important. I bet a lot of recreational therapists are like jumping for joy and screaming about this because like they're doing non-medical work, therapeutic way to provide, and we use it in a medical context. But it's like this little secret is like, oh yeah, engagement and activity is really useful and beneficial for people, and so we're gonna stick it into rehab program and have it show up in different places. There's even a whole profession for it, but like nobody really, not that many people know or use it, and like it's there. That's why they're there, and that's why it's super important, because we already recognize that science shows us having activity and ways to connect with each other vitally important for our emotional well-being, translates into our physical, right? So you got to get to work. It sounds like creating a category and getting everybody to use that title and get this ball rolling. Sounds like you got even more work than you thought you did.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I love what you're saying. Like one of my biggest supporter and partner is the Center for Applied Research in Dementia. Like Evan Shelton, who is the Chief Innovation Officer there, often said engagement is the best medicine. And I wholeheartedly believe that. And I've also seen that firsthand myself is a lady who is extremely anxious going after she said goodbye to her husband on the memory care floor, and then she started pacing around. That really affected like other residents, and her anxiety level was through the roof. And as soon as we engaged her with the puzzle, gave her something to anchor her mind and hands on, and inviting her a fellow residents to join her and coach her, cheer for her, the pacing stopped. Her anxiety was calmed down, and she was able to spend around 90 minutes engaged in solving a problem with her friends at a very deep level. And, you know, you can use all maths, but I feel like power and the impact coming from these therapeutic activities that allow her to solve a problem and in a fail-free way with the right visual support and peer support is just hugely validating for her on that day. So I've seen a lot of these impact stories myself, and I truly believe that engagement could become the best medicine in those situations.
I think that's you make so many really good points, a couple of which I want to highlight. You know, this is a great story that you told, because this is a story that is taking place across the world right now.
Everywhere. Yes.
Everywhere. There are probably hundreds of thousands of people across the globe who are in this same situation as this woman who's pacing around. She's anxious. She doesn't know what to do. And that all comes back to the fact that people, whether they have dementia or not, are people first, and people need to do something. People get bored.
Yes.
Including people with dementia. They're made to move. They're made to engage. And so really bringing it back to this idea of engagement being one of the best medicines that you can have. And I think, also kind of bringing this full circle, and Brandy, some of what you were saying, it's so widely recognized, even scientifically now, that engagement is absolutely vital for all levels of our health, for our mental health, for our physical health, for all of the things, right? And
Yeah.
I think also that no one would argue with that. I think it's patently obvious on a like common sense level to everyone that people need to be engaged, that we need to be social. What's so hard though is knowing how to make that happen when someone has had a change of state from what they used to be able to do to what they're able to do now. So everyone recognizes like we have to be able to do this, but it's what's really, really hard is actually figuring out how. And so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how do your products work? Like, can you give us some examples, or if you have any specific stories you want to share about that, that would be awesome to kind of, illustrate how what you've done is actually like working in the real world.
Love it. Yeah. So at Ageless, just the name of the brand that I'm building, we have two product lines. One is the visual support product line that support independence in their activities of daily living. And the second is engagement activities. So for the launching phase, we have the two-in-one jigsaw puzzles. So puzzles have been a staple throughout our life. There's, if you think about the packaging, the design of it, it's always pieces housed in generic top and bottom pack boxes. In order to open it, you have to dump it out and then like dump all the pieces out and then making sure all the pieces are flipped up. And so if you were to imagine that, picture that in a home environment, it's usually, from the closet and setting up on the table, making sure it's something prop up to put a cover on front of the person. That's already a 10-minute of setup. And the person may or may not be able to, understand the expectation or know how to do it properly. And they get frustrated very quickly. So I realized that I wanted to find a way that really support their ergonomic comfort and engagement. So what we designed is two-in-one jigsaw puzzle that is like puzzle built in the book. They only take 2 seconds to open up the cover page and rest it on a flat surface to provide the optimal comfortable viewing angle. And the puzzle pieces are super big, sturdy, and they're built inside the leaf. So all you need to do is to take the pieces out and putting it back in with the reference picture right in front of you. And because I realized that there is a varying ability level, so we also designed this guided picture template with the exact same guideline that caregiver can choose to place it on the side as a matching if the person cannot do puzzle, right? So, and then they can also put it back inside that cutout area to serve as a double visual support, one in the front, one in the back. So the pieces would just go on the top. And there, we also seen like people doing it in a solo moment while waiting for their wheelchair to be repaired. So that boredom of 45 minutes turned into really deeply engaged solo problem solving. And, once the person done with the first one, that's already like 45 minutes to 1 hour feel good time. And they can flip the page open and do the second one. So we've seen the very simple 1-inch thick puzzle book can turn into a very, a prolonged engagement time. And it was just simple. And then for the people who don't really want to do puzzle, there's an instruction guide with a lot of conversation and tidbits of information about the 2 national parks in the of the images that we feature in the first puzzle. So they can talk about their experiences at national parks and about their outdoor, about hiking. So it can also become a conversation gateway into, their past experiences. We've also seen caregivers are really creative. Like I thought about like 5 different ways of engaging this puzzle, from easy to hard, from puzzle to conversation. They even turn this into an interactive, like gamification experiences for their early stage memory cafe participant. So it's really fun activity for people to have that a little bit competitiveness in a supportive environment. So that's how, like, a simple, the most traditional product can, support people of varying abilities, but in the simplest format possible.
You're like speaking in OT's right, because to Amelia's point earlier, that Just Right challenge, having one product that can be used in multiple different ways and graded or changed up or down for level of ability is so awesome. And I also think that, in my experience, most caregivers who are the primary caregiver, like family caregiver, or even not the person that's living with them all the time, want to engage with their person, but don't know how to do that. And to have some scaffolding around that by just like, here's a puzzle, we both know what to do with. You see what the challenges or the benefit, change it based on, is great. And then as a clinician, like, that's what we're skilled at doing, is coming up with ways to engage, putting it at the right level for them. But the challenge is often, I can do that in session all the time, good therapist, right? But the challenge is, how do I take that from my session and my knowledge and translate it to the family caregiver so they can repeat that at home, have options at home? I'm only spending an hour with them the other 23 hours of the day.
Yes.
So to have something to hand to somebody, like, you know what, everything I just did in this session, you can do it with this in this way and make it super simple, is amazing. And also, like, the thinness of it means that you could take, it's like the same size, it could just fit in my backpack, just like for my kids, bring this with you. And because unfamiliar, you're gonna have to be sitting for a while. And so the thoughtfulness of all those individual details are like things that OTs usually like craft and try to figure out how to put together with duct tape and sewing thread. We do all kinds of crazy stuff, but
sewing thread
that looks good and feels good matters a lot. So I really appreciate you coming on and talking with us about it. I really appreciate your effort creating a new category and bringing dignity to this space so that people have many options of things to do. Besides people finding ageless products at AskSammy.com, where else can they connect with you, and where else can they find where else would you want to connect?
So we can, Ask Sammy. We're so excited to partner with Dr. Brandy to be a partner on Ask Sammy. But we also like constantly in this product development. I love product development. So we're always launching new products. So you can always find our products at ageless.com, and then ageless is going to spell very differently from this conventional word, just as how I think about, the creating a category. Whatever we're doing is unconventional. So we had a very unconventional spelling. Check that in the link. We're also hosting a dementia-friendly products pop-up in the Seattle community. So what that looks like is a curated showcase of various kind of like non-medical, non-pharmaceutical, dementia-friendly caregiving products that benefit family caregivers. We plan to do like a road trip style of showcase, including ageless products. We're going to start the first one on May 2nd, but we want to do it in different, parts of the city to really inspire organization to see if can we set up a model home that is really caregiving friendly, accessible, so whoever comes onto the caregiving journey can say, okay, let me see how I can get inspired and help me, a great caregiver, be the best caregiver possible. So more on that on our website as well. Also, find us on social media. We're on LinkedIn and Instagram, so find Ageless on those places. And also on the CareLab podcast.
Thanks for that final plug there. That's amazing.
Yeah.
We will, if you're watching or listening, we are going to link that in the show notes. So whether you're watching this on YouTube or you're listening to this wherever you get your podcast, just scroll down to the show notes and you'll get, there will be a link there for the Ageless website, so you can find them there directly. Of course, there's always links to Ask Sammy and Higher Standards Caregiver Training. You can find those resources there as well. Jutu, thank you so much for the work that you're doing that is so important. And thank you so much for spending the time this morning to have this really wonderful conversation with us here on CareLab. Dear listener/viewer, if you made it to the end of this episode, please take a moment to like, subscribe, share this with other people that you think might benefit from it. Most importantly, leave us a comment, leave us a review. These are the best ways for that algorithm, that tricky little algorithm there, to pick us up and start sharing this with more people like you who can benefit from the information and the resources that we try to go out there and find for you here on CareLab. So until next time, thank you so much for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you right back here next Friday on CareLab. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.